The Crystal Ballroom Confrontation. The Manhattan skyline glowed beneath winter darkness as Sophia Harrison stepped from the black car, her emerald gown catching city lights. The Crystal Ballroom of the Pinnacle Hotel rose before her, all glass and gold, a monument to wealth that made her stomach flutter with nerves. Inside, chandeliers the size of cars hung above marble floors. Waiters circulated with champagne. Marcus appeared beside her, one hand finding the small of her back. He was stunning in his tuxedo, dark eyes warm as they looked at her. "You look beautiful," he whispered, his lips brushing her ear. A shiver ran down her spine. They'd been married 2 years, but his touch still made her heart race. "I'm nervous," she admitted. "You belong here," he assured her, squeezing her hand. But as they moved through the crowd of Harrington's elite, Sophia didn't feel like she belonged. The Harrisons were generational wealth and power. Sophia's parents were teachers. Her childhood had been books and conversation, not galas and introductions to senators. She often wondered what Marcus saw in someone so ordinary. The evening unfolded gracefully. Sophia spoke with business wives, smiled at appropriate moments, tried to remember names. She was beginning to relax when she saw the disruption. Cassandra Vale entered like a storm, sharp angles, sharper smile, crimson dress announcing her arrival as a warning. Sophia's breath caught. She knew who Cassandra was. The ex-girlfriend. Marcus's family had mentioned her only vaguely. She was stunning in a cold, predatory way, moving through crowds with absolute certainty. Marcus stiffened, his hand tightening on Sophia's back. "Excuse me for a moment," he said quietly, moving toward his family to intercept whatever was coming. But Cassandra was faster. She appeared at Sophia's side with hunter's precision, champagne in perfectly manicured hand, smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Sophia," she said, drawing out each syllable like a caress. "How charming to see you again. That dress is quite spirited. So bold. Some would say too bold, but I appreciate the effort. It must be so difficult navigating these events when you haven't grown up in this world." Sophia forced a polite smile, heart racing. "Cassandra, I didn't realize you'd be here." "Oh, I'm on the foundation board now," Cassandra said, eyes glinting. "Marcus's father appointed me himself. He and I have always understood each other. Such a brilliant man. I imagine he must wonder what his son saw in someone quite so ordinary." The words landed like slaps. Around them, conversations quieted. Heads turned. People were watching, fascinated by this predatory unfolding. Sophia's mouth went dry. Every witty comeback dissolved before she could grasp it. She was aware of judgment in surrounding eyes, slight smirks on some faces. This was Cassandra's world. She understood these people, their codes, their cruelties. "You know," Cassandra continued, circling like a predator, "I've been thinking about Marcus and me. We had something special before all this. We understood each other, came from the same background. Sometimes I wonder if he made a mistake, settling down so quickly with someone who still seems so uncertain. Look at you, clutching that purse like it might escape. So nervous. So out of place." Sophia felt her eyes burn. Her hand trembled. She hated herself for showing weakness, for letting Cassandra see it. And then a shadow fell across them. A voice cut through the ballroom like a blade. "That's quite enough." Victor Harrison stood before them, silver-haired, broad-shouldered, radiating power that money alone could never buy. His piercing gray eyes fixed on Cassandra with intensity that made her step backward involuntarily. The entire ballroom fell silent. Even the string quartet seemed to pause. "Cassandra," Victor said quietly, "absolutely lethal. You will apologize to my daughter-in-law and then you will leave this event." "Immediately." "Mr. Harrison, I was simply—" "You were being cruel," he interrupted, his gaze unwavering. "And now you're going to learn that cruelty towards Sophia Harrison has a cost." Sophia felt the floor shift. Daughter-in-law. The way he said it, the way he looked at her, as if she were precious, worth defending. Marcus appeared at her side, his arm wrapping around her waist, pulling her close. Cassandra's face went pale. "I don't understand," she whispered. Victor's expression didn't soften. "You will. But not tonight. Tonight you leave. We'll discuss your continued employment with the foundation tomorrow." Cassandra turned, stumbling in her heels, and made her way toward the exit. The crowd parted for her. Sophia could see humiliation written in every line of her body. Victor turned to Sophia then, expression transforming completely. Where there had been ice, there was warmth. He extended his hand. "Shall we talk, Sophia?" he asked gently. "There are things you need to know. Things my son should have already told you. We need to speak about your grandmother." Marcus's arm tightened around her. Sophia looked between the two men, confusion and curiosity blooming equally. My grandmother? She asked softly. Victor smiled like sunrise. Yes, he said. Colme. There's a story you need to hear. It's about power, betrayal, redemption, and family. It's about who you really are. The private study was all dark wood and leather, shelves lined with books that looked like they'd been read 100 times. Victor poured 3 glasses of aged scotch while Sophia sat on the edge of an expensive sofa, Marcus beside her, his hand never leaving hers. Victor settled into his chair with the ease of someone accustomed to authority. He looked at Sophia with an expression she'd never seen directed at her before, a mixture of respect and something like apology. Your grandmother's name was Elena Vasquez, Victor began, his voice carrying the weight of decades. She was brilliant. Extraordinary, actually. She had a mind for business that most men would envy. In the 1980s, we built Harrison Industries together. We were young, ambitious, and we had a vision that changed the market. Sophia listened, transfixed. She'd never known her grandmother. Elena had died when Sophia was 5 years old. Her parents had spoken of her only in passing, a kind woman who made excellent food, nothing more. Elena and I were partners in every sense, Victor continued. We created something revolutionary. But there was also. He paused, pain crossing his features. There was attraction between us. Nothing was ever acted upon. She was married to your grandfather, a good man, and I respected that. But the tension was there. Marcus squeezed Sophia's hand gently. One day I made a mistake, Victor said quietly. I was young and stupid. I kissed her. Just once. Elena pulled away immediately, horrified, and she told your grandfather everything. He was devastated. Elena was devastated. And my business partner at the time, a man named Richard Crowley, saw an opportunity. Sophia leaned forward, absorbed. Richard had always wanted what Elena and I had created. He used that kiss, that single moment of weakness, as leverage. He told Elena that unless she signed over her shares of Harrison Industries to him, he would ensure that her marriage was destroyed. He would spread the story, twist it, make it about infidelity and betrayal. Elena was terrified of losing your grandfather. She signed the documents. Victor's jaw tightened. She transferred everything to Richard's name. He then forced me out of my own company using the same blackmail threat. Within 6 months, Harrison Industries was entirely his. Your grandmother and I, we lost everything. More importantly, Elena lost what she had built with her own hands and mind. That's, Sophia started then stopped. She didn't have words. Your grandfather stood by Elena, but the shame destroyed him. He died 15 years later, heartbroken. Elena raised your mother alone, never speaking about what happened, never pursuing legal action. She was too proud, too ashamed, and too afraid for your mother's safety. She just disappeared into a quiet life. Marcus's arm came around Sophia, pulling her close. Before Elena died, Victor continued, his voice growing stronger, she contacted me. She wanted to reconcile, to explain, to heal what had been broken. We spent her final months together and she made me promise something. She made me promise that one day when the time was right, I would restore what had been taken from her bloodline. How? Sophia whispered. 15 years ago, I bought back Harrison Industries. It took every resource I had, every connection, every favor owed to me. But I did it. And I rebuilt it into something Elena would have been proud of. More importantly, I've been waiting for you. Sophia felt the room spin slightly. You inherited your grandmother's intelligence, her vision, her strength, Victor said, looking directly at her. Marcus married you not despite your background, but because he recognized in you what I recognized. You're Elena's granddaughter in every way that matters. And now it's time for you to claim what belongs to your family. What are you saying? Sophia asked, though part of her already knew. I'm saying that Harrison Industries belongs to you. Not immediately, you'll need training, preparation, and a full understanding of what you're inheriting. But when I step down, which will be within the year, you will take my place as CEO. Marcus will work beside you as our lead strategist. Together, the three of us will ensure that Elena Vasquez's legacy is restored and her name is remembered as the visionary she was. Marcus pulled Sophia closer, his lips finding her hair. I wanted to tell you, he whispered against her ear. But my father wanted to be certain first. I'm sorry I kept this from you. Sophia turned to look at him, seeing the truth in his eyes. He had been waiting, protecting her, letting her come to this moment ready. Victor rose from his chair. I'm going to leave you two alone now. Sophia, tomorrow we begin your education. But tonight you need to process this. Marcus, take care of your wife. As Victor left the study, closing the heavy door behind him, Sophia felt the weight of destiny settling on her shoulders. But it wasn't crushing. It was clarifying. Marcus took her hand and pulled her to her feet. "Are you angry with me?" he asked softly. "No," she said, meeting his eyes. "I'm terrified. But not angry." He smiled, and it was the smile of someone who loved her completely. "Then we face this together." He kissed her then, deeply, with all the tenderness and passion that had been building between them since the day they met. Sophia felt her fears begin to dissolve, replaced by something stronger, certainty that whatever came next she wouldn't face it alone. The inheritance awakens. The boardroom on the 43rd floor smelled like expensive leather and possibility. Sophia sat at the long mahogany table, papers spread before her, financial reports, market analyses, strategic projections. Victor sat to her right. Marcus sat to her left. 3 board members she'd never met sat across from her, their expressions ranging from skeptical to openly hostile. Harrison, one of them, a man named Douglas Reed with silver temples and a permanent frown, began, "You have no experience in corporate management. No background in finance. No track record whatsoever. Surely you understand our concerns about bringing you into a leadership position." Sophia had spent the last 3 months studying. She'd read every book on business strategy she could find. She'd attended meetings as an observer. She'd learned the language of profit margins and market disruption. But this, being questioned, being doubted, was something no amount of reading could prepare her for. She took a breath and began to speak, her voice steady. "You're right that I have no traditional experience," she said. "But I've spent the last 3 months learning everything I can about Harrison Industries. I've read our financial statements for the last 2 decades. I've analyzed our competitor strategies. And I've identified 3 major market opportunities we're currently missing." Douglas's expression didn't change. "Such as?" Sophia pulled up her laptop, projecting charts onto the screen behind her. For the next 45 minutes, she walked them through her analysis. A potential expansion into green technology that aligned with their manufacturing base, a partnership with an emerging biotech firm that could revolutionize their product line, and a strategic acquisition of a smaller company whose intellectual property would strengthen their patents. She watched as the skeptical expressions gradually shifted. When she finished, there was a moment of silence. Then Victor smiled. "That's Elena Vasquez thinking right there," he said quietly. "I'd recognize that strategic vision anywhere." Marcus reached under the table and squeezed her thigh, a gesture that made her skin warm. By the end of the 3-month intensive training period, Sophia had transformed. She attended every meeting, asked sharp questions, and made decisions with a confidence that surprised even herself. The board members who had doubted her began to respect her. Douglas Reed even brought her coffee one morning without being asked. But it was the stolen moments with Marcus that kept her sane. One afternoon, after a particularly brutal 6-hour strategy session, Sophia stood in the executive bathroom trying to compose herself. Her hands were shaking slightly, her confidence temporarily wavering. There was a soft knock on the door. "Sophia?" Marcus called softly, using the diminutive of her name that he alone used. She opened the door to find him leaning against the hallway wall, his suit jacket discarded, his tie loosened. He looked like he wanted to devour her whole. "Come here," he said, pulling her into the empty conference room next door. The glass walls afforded them just enough privacy from the busy floor below. He pushed her against the mahogany table, his hands finding her face, tilting her chin up toward him. "You were incredible in there," he whispered against her lips. "Do you know how beautiful you are when you're confident?" She kissed him back, months of tension and longing pouring into the contact. His hands moved down her sides, pulling her closer, and she felt the heat of him against her, the strength of his desire matching her own. "We should stop," she whispered, even as her hands unbuttoned his shirt. "Probably," he agreed, not stopping at all. His lips found the sensitive spot where her neck met her shoulder, making her gasp. "But I don't want to." They made love right there, against that mahogany table, with the whole city stretched out below them and the possibility of being discovered adding an edge of danger. When they were done, Sophia lay against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, feeling more at peace than she had in weeks. "I love you," she said simply. "I love you too," he replied, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. "And I'm so proud of you I could burst." By month 6, Sophia had successfully negotiated the acquisition of the biotech firm. The board unanimously approved her expansion into green technology. And she had earned the respect of everyone in Harrison Industries, not because of her marriage to Marcus, but because of her own brilliant mind. One evening, after a particularly successful product launch, Marcus took her to their apartment overlooking Central Park. He'd arranged for a private chef to prepare dinner, and they ate by candlelight, their fingers occasionally brushing across the table. After dinner, he pulled her to the floor in front of the fireplace, where they lay together, his arms around her from behind, her back against his chest. "Do you remember the day you arrived at the Crystal Ballroom?" he asked softly, pressing a kiss to her shoulder. "How could I forget? Cassandra nearly destroyed me. You were stronger than you realized even then," he said. "But now I get to watch as you become the woman you were always meant to be. And Sophia, watching you discover your own power, it's the most beautiful thing I've ever witnessed." She turned to face him, their foreheads touching. "I couldn't have done any of this without you," she said. "Yes, you could have," he replied. "But I'm grateful you didn't have to. I'm grateful I get to be here beside you watching you shine." They kissed, slow and deep, and Sophia felt gratitude wash through her, for Marcus, for Victor, for her grandmother Elena, for all the choices that had led her to this moment. Cassandra's desperation. Cassandra Vale sat in her apartment on the Upper West Side, staring at her laptop screen. The headlines were everywhere. Harrison Industries CEO announces aggressive expansion strategy, mysterious new executive reshapes company, the woman who changed everything. And beneath every article, there was a photo of Sophia, smiling confidently, looking every inch the powerful woman she had become. Cassandra's hands shook as she scrolled. It had been 6 months since the gala. 6 months since Victor had humiliated her in front of hundreds of people. 6 months since she'd been quietly removed from the foundation board and let go from her position at the firm where she'd worked. She tried to move on. She tried to rebuild her network. But no one wanted to work with Cassandra Vale anymore. The rumors had circulated, though Cassandra didn't know how they'd started, that she was unreliable, that she bullied junior employees, that she had a vindictive streak. Doors that had been opened to her before were now firmly closed. And it was Sophia's fault. Cassandra had convinced herself of this over the past 6 months. Sophia had poisoned people against her. Victor had clearly shared stories. Marcus had probably painted her as some kind of villain. And now Sophia, ordinary, unremarkable, absolutely mediocre Sophia, was at the helm of Harrison Industries while Cassandra sat in an apartment she could barely afford, watching her former life crumble. The rage was a living thing inside her chest. One evening, as she drank her 4th glass of wine, Cassandra opened her email and began to write. She had connections to journalists, people who owed her favors. She would tell them a story about Sophia, about how she'd slept her way to the top, how she was having an affair with her father-in-law, how she was embezzling from the company. It would be beautiful, devastating, and impossible to trace back to Cassandra. She typed furiously, drafting emails to 3 different journalists at major publications, laying out her evidence, carefully constructed lies interwoven with half-truths, designed to be just plausible enough that people would question Sophia's integrity. By the time she hit send, Cassandra felt almost euphoric. Within days, she thought, Sophia's perfect world would crumble. And then, maybe, someone would remember Cassandra Vale. But Cassandra didn't know that her apartment wasn't as private as she thought. She didn't know that Sophia, now fully educated in the ways of corporate espionage and protection, had quietly hired investigators the moment Cassandra had been removed from the company. She didn't know that every email, every draft, every line of code Cassandra had sent had been intercepted and documented. The first indication that something was wrong came on a Tuesday morning. Cassandra woke to police at her door. They had a warrant for her arrest. Fraud, defamation, conspiracy to damage a business. They found her laptop, still containing evidence of her fabricated stories, the careful documentation of her lies. They found emails from her attempts to coordinate with journalists. They found her financial records showing desperate attempts to secure loans, mounting debts, unpaid bills. Within 24 hours, every journalist Cassandra had contacted had also been contacted by Sophia's legal team, provided with ironclad evidence that the evidence Cassandra had submitted was entirely fabricated. The story that made headlines wasn't about Sophia's alleged corruption. It was about Cassandra Vale's elaborate scheme to fabricate evidence and destroy a woman's reputation out of spite. Sophia watched the news coverage from the executive offices of Harrison Industries, Marcus standing beside her, his hand on her back. When the mugshot appeared, Cassandra's carefully maintained facade cracked, her hair disheveled, her eyes wild. Sophia felt no satisfaction. Only pity. She destroyed herself, Marcus said quietly. You just didn't let her destroy you in the process. Victor joined them, watching the same news coverage. Elena would be proud, he said simply. Cassandra's lawyers tried to negotiate a deal. The prosecution was willing to be lenient if she agreed to stop, to disappear, to never contact anyone involved ever again. Cassandra, facing years in prison, took the deal. She was sentenced to 2 years with probation and strict orders to have no contact with Sophia, Marcus, or anyone at Harrison Industries. As she was led away to begin her sentence, Sophia felt something shift inside her. The anger, the hurt, the lingering doubt, it all dissolved. Cassandra was no longer a threat. She was just a broken person who had chosen bitterness over growth, destruction over healing. That evening, Sophia and Marcus lay in their bed and she wept, not from sadness but from release. Marcus held her, whispering reassurances, reminding her that she had survived, that she had won, that she was stronger than she'd ever believed possible. "I don't want to be like her," Sophia whispered against his chest. "I don't want to become someone consumed by rage and revenge." "You won't," Marcus said, kissing the top of her head. "You have too much goodness in you. That's why I love you. That's why everyone loves you." Love rises from ashes. 6 months later, Victor's private estate glowed under starlight. The grounds had been transformed into something magical. String lights wove through the gardens, candles flickered on every surface, and soft music drifted through the night air. It was intimate, perfect, sacred in a way that public venues could never be. Sophia stood in the master bedroom, looking at herself in the mirror. She wore a white silk gown that flowed like water, simple and elegant, absolutely beautiful. Her grandmother's diamond necklace hung around her neck. Victor had given it to her that morning, saying that Elena would have wanted her to wear it on this night. A soft knock came at the door. It was Victor, dressed in an impeccable suit, his eyes warm with pride and affection. "Are you ready?" he asked, extending his arm. "I'm terrified," she admitted, taking his arm. "That's natural," he said, walking her toward the garden. "But Sophia, the man waiting for you would walk through fire for you. You have nothing to fear." The garden path was lit by candles, leading toward an arbor woven with white flowers. And there, waiting for her, was Marcus. He wore a white shirt and dark trousers, and when he saw her, his expression transformed into something so raw, so full of love, that Sophia's breath caught. Victor released her arm and placed her hand in Marcus's. "Take care of her," he said simply. "Always," Marcus replied, his eyes never leaving Sophia's face. They renewed their vows in that garden, with only Victor, a handful of close family members, and true friends present. Sophia spoke words she'd written herself, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. "Marcus, you stood beside me when I was broken. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You held my hand through fear and doubt and transformation. I promise to love you with that same fierce devotion. I promise to grow with you, to challenge you, to support you. I promise to never take for granted the miracle of your love." Marcus's voice broke as he spoke his own vows. "Sophia, you've shown me what real strength looks like. Not the kind of strength that comes from power or money, but the kind that comes from facing your demons and choosing to become who you were meant to be. I want to spend my life watching you shine. I want to be the man worthy of standing beside you." When they kissed, the guests applauded, and Sophia felt like she was floating. Later, after the formal dinner and toasts, after Victor had shared stories of Elena and celebrated the strength of the Vasquez bloodline, Sophia found herself alone with Marcus on the terrace overlooking the gardens. The string lights were still glowing, and the stars seemed impossibly bright. "Come with me," Marcus whispered, taking her hand. He led her to the garden's private corner, a hidden area surrounded by flowering vines and moonlight. Here, away from everyone, their passion could be unreserved, unguarded, completely authentic. He kissed her deeply, his hands finding the zipper of her gown, slowly lowering it until the silk pooled at her feet. She was beautiful in the moonlight, her body a map of all the strength she'd discovered over the past year. Marcus worshipped her with his hands and his lips, tracing every curve, every scar, every perfect imperfection. "I love you," he whispered against her skin. "God, Sophia, I love you so much." She pulled his shirt from his body, revealing the strong lines of his chest, his shoulders, the evidence of his own power. But it was his tenderness that overwhelmed her, the way he moved with such care, such reverence, as if she were the most precious thing in his world. They made love under the stars, their bodies moving together with the rhythm of months of understanding, of trust, of absolute devotion. There was no urgency, no performance, just the pure, uncomplicated connection of two people who had chosen each other, fought for each other, and emerged stronger together. Afterward, they lay tangled together on the soft grass, Sophia's head on Marcus's chest, his fingers drawing circles on her bare shoulder. The night was cool, the silence perfect. "What are you thinking?" Marcus asked softly. "That I'm happy," Sophia said simply. "Truly, completely happy. A year ago, I would never have believed this was possible. And now? Now I know that happiness isn't about where you come from or what you were born with. It's about the people you choose to stand beside. It's about facing your fears and discovering that you're stronger than you knew." Marcus tilted her chin up and kissed her gently. "Welcome to your life, Mrs. Harrison," he whispered. "The life you've earned." As the night deepened and the stars wheeled overhead, Sophia felt the full weight of her transformation. She was no longer the uncertain woman in the emerald gown, questioning whether she belonged. She was Elena Vasquez's granddaughter. She was the CEO of Harrison Industries. She was a woman who had survived cruelty and emerged with her heart intact and her spirit stronger. But more importantly, she was loved. Completely, fiercely, unconditionally loved by a man who saw her true self and cherished it. As dawn began to break over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Sophia and Marcus walked back toward the estate hand in hand, ready to face whatever the future held together. Image prompts for story. Elegant woman in emerald gown arriving at luxurious crystal ballroom with tall dark-haired man in tuxedo, both uncertain and hopeful, Manhattan skyline glowing behind them through massive windows. Cold beautiful woman in crimson dress speaking cruelly to another woman, surrounded by elegant guests watching with fascination, crystal chandeliers casting prismatic light, marble and gold surroundings. Distinguished silver-haired man in tuxedo standing with commanding authority, piercing gray eyes silencing an entire ballroom, shocked elegant faces visible in soft focus background, absolute power emanating from his presence. Man in tuxedo pulling vulnerable woman close against his body, intimate moment, warm brown eyes looking down at her with protective love and tenderness, luxury ballroom setting soft behind them. Professional woman in business suit sitting at mahogany boardroom table covered with papers and laptops, confident expression, morning light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows showing city skyline, strength visible in her bearing. Couple in formal business attire kissing passionately against a mahogany conference table, dangerous intimacy with city spread out below them in windows, private moment of pure connection and desire. Woman being arrested, mugshot expression broken and desperate, police officers in background, headlines visible about fabricated scandals and failed revenge plot, consequences of cruelty visible. Couple renewing vows under starlight in a secret garden corner, surrounded by white flowers and candlelight, woman in flowing white silk gown and man in white shirt, pure romantic connection under stars, intimate vulnerability and complete devotion visible in their expressions.